What's up guys, welcome to another YouTube video on the channel. In the background is just some gameplay that I've got over the past couple of days. There's a Rush 24/7 playlist going on at the moment. Rush is an original DLC BO2 map, so I've been enjoying playing that. And then the other gameplay is just Nuketown. And this is going to be the first video where I'm going to be talking about fitness related stuff. And basically it is just a copy and paste of my podcast, which is on my Team Adonisy YouTube channel. Just type in Team Adonisy into the YouTube tab, and that's Team Adonisy with a capital T and a capital A, and the channel will come up. Make sure to go subscribe to that channel, guys. That's where the podcast will be uploaded, and support the team that I own and my own business and all the members that I coach, etc. So hopefully you enjoy me talking about fitness, nutrition, all that stuff. Enjoy the gameplay in the background, and I'll speak to you guys after. Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to Team Adonisy's podcast, episode 1. I'm very excited to start doing these regularly to give you guys the honest truth and knowledge when it comes to training and nutrition and all things in between. The first episode is going to be laying the foundation for future, more advanced podcasts. Keeping things simple is always going to be the best for the majority of people. However, exploring advanced concepts to each simple procedure/principle is always going to expand someone's knowledge to get a better grasp on the ins and outs of those simple principles. I like to think of this as a tree. So above the ground is what everyone sees, the results, the things you do often, like going to the gym, etc. Below that are all the roots of the tree, which are all advanced concepts going on behind the scenes, doing their job to ensure those simple principles work and those goals are achieved. The less complicated you can make any process, the better. Spending more time on creating a structured and detailed plan will allow for this to happen. A detailed plan doesn't have to be everything down to the absolute last detail, as you will come across those details throughout your journey and will auto-regulate depending on circumstances. And this is in relation to training, nutrition, and tracking those variables. Don't look at mastering things that are useless before mastering the foundations of training and nutrition. It's actually a very, very common problem, and one that I've ran into many times in my own training/coaching. Mastering useless stuff, straying away from learning the fundamentals and perfecting them, is a surefire way to be spinning your wheels and getting yourself confused. We only have a limited amount of time and energy to spend on tasks day to day, and putting it all towards the right task and mastering them will equal you winning in achieving your goals and progressing towards those goals that you're wanting to achieve. So putting it all towards a wrong task and mastering those, you're going to lose. Pretty simple. There's always a hierarchy of priorities we must adhere to with anything we want to achieve in life. So you must learn what those things are. So keeping things simple, utilizing the fundamentals, simply writing down things such as what you want to eat, laying it out over 2 to 3 meals, and then sticking to it is very, very simple to do. The same goes with training, laying out what you want to do for the next 6 weeks in your training program, and then following that and progressing each and every week. You want to be doing this every single day for a week, weeks and months, with changes every now and then, if changes are obviously required. This approach frees up the mental energy required to build businesses, improve careers, and also be a great person in general. Some individuals try to get past tracking things and following a structured plan because they go balls to the wall, in quotation marks, and try to smash out everything in one go. Now, you may think this is hard to do, but doing this is actually very easy, and there's a lot of situations where people lose, 20 to 30 kilos as an example, and they went full on into it, and that was the first time they ever lost that amount of weight. But when they try and do that again, the results aren't there to be seen. So training hard isn't that hard if we're looking at the context of training in the gym. The same as going balls to the wall, training and nutrition wise isn't difficult. If you have played sports competitively, as a good example, and you're a grown man or woman, you can push to failure and scream/groan a lot in the gym or during your sport or whatever, and it's easy to do. The hard part about all this is following a plan that is ideal and challenging enough for you, and following that plan consistently. That's going to be the hard part. So following workout after workout, week after week, that's what it's all about. So following the plan and sticking to it as best you can is what you are striving to do. So much of success when it comes to training and nutrition is knowing what not, in quotation marks, to focus on. Maybe stop trying to fix your gut health when you aren't yet able to adhere to a simple diet for more than 72 hours. Another example is stop trying to follow advanced training protocols when you can't even deadlift double your body weight for solid reps. It's very, very simple. Train, eat, get adequate sleep, track everything. Focusing too much on following other not low-hanging fruit things is wasted time and effort that can be better spent on actions that will allow you to progress with relative ease. Every day, your goal should be to go about nailing the basic fundamentals you have planned out to get you towards the goals you are wanting to achieve. As far as a plan goes, there is no absolute plan when it comes to getting results. No list of perfect actions that will get you to where you want to be. It's more so that there are thousands of tiny little decisions that you must learn to make on a daily basis. So you have your main plan, or you could say your main course of action, which we just covered. And if we utilize chess as a great example here, when you play chess, there are so many decisions you can make that will affect the course of the game. However, there are things out of your control, which, for example, are your opponent's moves. Your moves are the foundations you have put in place, the plan, and when you move is when you're going to be getting closer to your goals. However, your opponent's moves are moves that are trying to stop you, in the example of training and nutrition, all those other little things that pop up in your life, sometimes knocking you back. Having the right plan in place will allow you to knock more of your opponent's pieces, quotation marks, and the pieces in this example are the obstacles in your journey, and knocking those pieces over will allow you to get to your goal of winning the chess game or getting to your goals in training and nutrition in a steady amount of time. At times you won't be perfect and will make mistakes, but making more of the right decisions will allow you to get back in the game and allow you eventually to achieve your goal of winning the game or achieving your goal. This is what you should be looking to improve and educate yourself on. Put more of your time and effort towards learning how to be aware and assess each situation in front of you. Make the best decision you can and then act. Because then you don't have to rely on others' opinions or ways of doing things. You can just start trusting your own processes and putting them into place. So whether it be training, nutrition, recovery, every single aspect of body composition improvement is specific to the individual and only that individual. There are most certainly guidelines towards achieving body composition improvements. However, the secret lies within recognizing how one responds to the recommendations made and making adjustments based on the information present. It's a very important factor to understand how things work, why they work, and finding a way to integrate the strategy into that particular individual's life in order to achieve a successful outcome. Consistently doing a lot of the right things over and over again is the main determining factor when it comes to achieving any goal that you set out to achieve. The right things are tracking data such as your body weight, calories, macronutrients, steps each and every day, and assessing the weekly averages to get an idea of where you are at in terms of the plan that you put into place. If you don't track these things, then it's going to make it very difficult for you to know when further change is required, when adjustments need to be made, or more importantly, if the overall plan is working. So this all comes down to being consistent. Consistency and effort is always going to win. Committing yourself will allow you to achieve what you desire to set out. Developing your physique is a long-term investment that you cannot buy or obtain without ongoing consistent effort. When it comes to making gains, it takes a lot more effort than simply maintaining them, especially as you become a more advanced trainee. Of course, in an ideal world, applying yourself to an optimal level, day in, day out, year round will provide the best results possible. However, with life in general, this often is unlikely the case. Work, relationships, and personal commitments arise, which often makes setting those nutrition and training priorities out of the equation. And just speaking in general here, you can do this at any age, but it is generally easier in the early stages of life to make significant progress as there is a lot less responsibility. However, besides the obvious that gains are made at a much greater rate early on in your lifting journey or your training age being younger. When looking at showing up in the gym, consistency is more than just showing up to the gym. A lot of individuals would go to the gym without a specific purpose or a specific goal to hit. Randomly doing different exercises each session and switching things up constantly going back to the lack of consistency. This can all be regarded when looking at progress and evaluating it within training. How are you going to know if you are taking steps forward or taking steps back when you're randomly doing different things with different levels of effort constantly? Well, you won't, because you're being inconsistent. This also applies to dieting or being in a caloric surplus or a caloric deficit. Your training performance, coupled along with your increase and decreases in body weight and also your physical appearance, so your physique pictures and physique videos, all matter when it comes to determining if progress is happening. A great example is if you are in a calorie deficit, assessing if your lifts are going up or you're losing too much weight that is affecting your performance in the gym. Being consistent with these factors gives you a better, much more accurate picture whether you are on the right track or something needs to be adjusted. One term that I truly despise and I hear plenty of people use is that I want to switch it up in the gym, or I need change when I work out every single session or each week constantly. I like to give the analogy of that's like shooting from the hip when you're shooting a gun and hoping that you're going to hit something rather than aiming that gun and hitting something. So with all these things factored in and all these goals and planning, genetics are going to play a role, and genetics do matter. For some people, their genetics are going to be better than others, and that's just the way it is. Everyone has their own strengths in certain things, certain areas, certain muscle groups, and you shouldn't blame your genetics for not working hard. People will accuse others of using performance enhancements to make themselves feel better. That's why there's all those ridiculous natty or not videos, because people are comparing themselves to others. You never look like them anyway, because you are not them. You are an individual and you are unique. Say for example, if someone wants to be 6'2", but they're 5'8", they can't just grow those extra feet, and that's because that's due to their genetics. Once again, regardless of whatever you do, don't ever have your genetics be the limiting factor and have you work less hard in the gym, training, nutrition. Stick with the program. Don't just throw around weight and don't just lift too heavy for the sake of it. Make sure you're doing a specific exercise, focusing on the specific muscles being targeted through each repetition. The three things you always want to remember when training in the gym is your execution, your effort, and your progression. To simplify, if you're going too hard and you're jerking around the weight, like what kind of muscles are you working? You can train with good form, but you're leaving a lot of reps in the tank and staying within your comfort zone and expecting to improve when you're taking it easy. Muscle growth occurs when you introduce larger amounts of stress to the muscles over the period of time. That's science. Which also means you shouldn't be training too easy or too idiotic and training way beyond failure or at failure all the times. If you're not tracking your progress, how do you know if you are improving or not? How would you know what variables need to be adjusted within factors such as your diet and your rest? I know it can be a repetitive process, but following the program and successfully achieving those small progressions is what you should be striving for. I'll keep saying it over and over again. There's no need to do an all-you-can-eat buffet of exercise variations. You should be sticking with the simple and proven exercises, performing quality reps, and giving a quality effort. Staying consistent with the program and not changing things up constantly, doing some fancy exercise that a fitness influencer has shown you. The same exercises but harder efforts week to week should be what you should be aiming to do, and following progressive overload. Aiming for those baby steps past your limits is how you improve. Always going back to execution, effort, and progression. So you'll notice that we're always keeping the concept simple, especially when it comes to all factors within fitness, sticking with the program, performing quality reps, and aiming for small progressions over time, like I previously stated. You don't need to be doing, 50 different variations. Anything that you see most of the time from that fitness influencer magic workout and only used to fool the naive so you can keep buying their pretty much bullshit. How do you lose body fat? Well, insulin combined with hormones at the same time, drinking that detox tea guaranteed to make you slim in 2 minutes. That's what they try and promote. But in reality, what makes you lose fat or body fat is a calorie deficit. That's what burns fat. Nothing else. I know it's probably annoying to hear me say similar things over and over again during this podcast, but there really is no other way to make progression in the gym or with your nutrition. If someone is telling you otherwise or showing you some unique way of doing things, the main fundamentals of the way they do things will be progressive overload, a calorie surplus, deficit, or maintenance. It's just achieved with the fancy sprinkles on a cake, if you will. So again, we need to go into the gym focusing on going in there and having a purpose with your training. So if I elaborate even more, you need to put a little bit more intention behind what you do inside the gym. It's overwhelmingly clear that the requirement in order to achieve improved body composition, which is to get bigger, grow a certain muscle group, lose fat tissue, or get more toned, is to be progressive within training performance, as most people know as progressive overload. This is not something required on a day-to-day basis, but more so on a month-to-month, year-to-year basis. Focusing on progressing within your training needs to be a big priority if you're looking to gain muscle tissue. Just because something feels hard or burns, makes you feel fatigued locally and systemically, does not equate to productivity within your training. Yes, fatigue is essential to encourage the adaptations of hypertrophy. However, this should never be the most important factor or variable. For example, if you perform a particular exercise like a leg extension, it won't take very long for you to feel a response in the sense of lactic acid and muscular fatigue. However, this will offer far less benefit comparative to a movement pattern that allows you to maximize mechanical tension and apply greater load over time, which you may not experience the same burning or fatigue sensation when doing this movement compared to a leg extension, but it's going to be way more beneficial for you progressing over a long period of time. Both have their time and place in a program. However, the fundamental factors of hypertrophy need to be kept in mind. It will only make sense to prioritize the movements best suited to you, and that will maximize the result that you desire. But there are some issues that still rear their ugly heads in an individual's training. The issue with lots of people's training is that they are unclear as to how best to execute the principle behind this, which is why at times people's training will plateau regularly or they will be stuck. So generally there are two types of people in the gym throughout the majority of the population. People who don't write their training and people who do write it down. It's important to also note that you should stop looking at how to grow muscle and more so just improving on what you're already doing, owning your already accomplished skill set. Training involves a lot of motivation, and it can be frustrating putting in a lot of time and effort and not seeing any results for all that hard work. And more than likely, it always comes down to two things. One is you're either not programming appropriately, or a more common approach is to do more, and this most of the time does not equal more gains. However, the intent behind effort is often the secret or missing ingredient. Training 5 to 6 days a week may not be ideal or even necessary, and it's up to you to decide and take it on the chin that you need to do a little less to allow for adequate recovery and progression. Remember, muscle growth is more or less a game of balancing adequate volume and intensity with adequate recovery. So I really just want people to understand the logic of why it is probably more effective long term to not just focus on how hard an individual is training, and more so on how their training is progressing and is progressive. Without progression within our training, you are not improving, which means your body is more likely to not budge and work to create new muscle tissue. When it comes to coaching anyone, including myself at Team Indomacy, I always approach it in a way that removes a lot of the variation or unnecessary stuff and brings it back to the basic fundamentals. This way it allows me and the individual involved to improve their ability to perform the fundamentals within training. It is quite rare to see someone performing the deadlift, squat, bench press, overhead press, bent over row extremely well with great technique and form. However, in order to effectively perform any variation of these staples, it's important to be able to perform their origin well. It's often people tend to look for the best exercise, rep range, loading pattern, etc. in order to maximize muscle growth. However, it is more about the principles behind training that matter the most. Performing basic exercises well means that the understanding and ability to perform these movements will allow that knowledge and experience to roll over into any variation performed to maximize the effectiveness of any exercise performed in the future. Variation has its place and it is necessary in order to continually progress, but it should be used at the right dosage and for the correct duration. There is no such thing as essential when it comes to exercise selection for muscle growth. However, generally speaking, the exercise that you can progressively overload consistently allows you to apply the load specifically to the target area or areas and perform safely/consistently to remain injury free will offer the most bang for your buck and should be the focus during most of your macro cycles or your yearly training. Allowing excessive variation will result in a prolonged result simply because the ability to increase skill, strength, and apply progressive overload will be very limited. You will be very surprised at how drastically your strength and result improves even within the first 4 weeks from simply tracking progression and applying the basics. Don't overcomplicate it, just get really good at the basics and the rest will take care of itself. If we take dumbbell presses as an example, without a question they are a great exercise which enables a person to take advantage of the entire range of motion to get that full stretch and top contraction at the top of the repetition. But dumbbell presses unfortunately are often an ego-driven lifting exercise involving a person to use a pair of dumbbells and too heavy to handle relative to their capabilities. So for example, they have a friend assist them on the first rep and then they proceed to go halfway down and they're not focusing on technique first. Focusing on technique first will allow strength and progression to be consistent across the weeks and allow you to get stronger over time rather than doing half reps, almost blinding yourself of your strength increases. It should never be the other way around, forcing yourself to go way too heavy no matter how bad the form is. Following full range of motion at all times on an exercise will allow you to recruit the most amount of muscle fibers for that muscle group you are targeting, allowing it to grow the best it can. So as far as training, that is pretty much training covered simply and a little bit of nutrition. Now we can look into more of the physique circumstances. If we look at simple physique circumstances, such as when looking at healthy body fat levels. A healthy body fat level is defined as somewhere, if we are speaking from a hormonal standpoint, that you're feeling good, you're happy, performance is through the roof, which is your performance in the gym, and also your libido is there. And you're not, in most cases, as sharp or cut in terms of your physique, but reasonably defined. Maybe you're showing some form of abs, or maybe you're not, depending on your genetics, and this is referred to as a healthy body fat level. Your body needs body fat. It doesn't care about being shredded, sliced and diced with razor sharp definition. It cares about survival. A good majority of the population would lose weight to get to the healthy body fat levels. Now physique competitors, fitness models, etc. lose weight going from healthy body fat levels into unhealthy low zone body fat levels, in which internally everything is chaotic from a physiological standpoint as well as a psychological standpoint. As myself being a coach, if you have no intention of competing, etc., then I see no reason to try and get to that shredded state and try to maintain it. To summarize and simplify what I'm trying to say, it's just not healthy trying to maintain that level of leanness. I'm not saying that if you have goals around that you should just scrap those goals. Just think about all the factors that are going to contribute to you trying to get to that level and maintaining it. The ideal body fat for most individuals is certainly for most people not below 10%. Having too low of a body fat will have a negative side effect, such as the obvious, being hungry and very restrictive will leave you feeling lethargic, which will cause your performance in the gym to go down, lowering down your succession through progressively overloading, which is the key to building progressively within the gym and building muscle tissue. How can you expect to progress if your energy is low and you're constantly feeling like garbage? Your body needs body fat, and internally, your body does not care nor want to be shredded and aesthetic. It just wants to survive. So everyone has a different body fat level they'd more or less like to maintain at. For the most part, it shouldn't be extremely high, nor should it be extremely low. A good midpoint, roughly, is from the 14 to 17%, and you would put 3 to 4% on top of that as a woman. The body fat level that you like maintaining at differs from individual to individual. Try to get to a point where you're lean enough relative to yourself, in which you have plenty of energy to train hard and progress within your training sessions to simplify it. So if we go into the eating side of things really quick, just because your goals are around losing weight, gaining weight, and maintaining a healthy body fat percentage doesn't mean you should hate or deal with what you eat. Eating is and should be an enjoyable part of life. And frankly, when you are forced to be extremely restrictive eating foods that you quite simply hate, thinking long term here will only lead to potential eating disorders and / or even worse, eating habits, as well as affecting your overall psychology. I see it all the time. A person will be on zero carbs for prolonged periods of time, and all they post is consistent food delicacies that are very high in calories. As well as that, they can't wait for the time that comes where their temporary restrictive diet ends, and then they can stop eating very restrictive foods and start just eating a lot of different foods, a lot of junk food, all that stuff. All they're going to pack on is a lot of fat, and all that progress they made is going to get gained back. So the important lesson here is balance is the long-term approach here. Fat is not something you can permanently get rid of. It's always going to be there, and unfortunately it can easily come back if you don't take the proper control of your eating habits. And being overly restrictive and going on these restrictive diets does not help. Alright, I think that leads us into the nutrition portion of the podcast. So when it comes to nutrition, we need to remember that we all have a maintenance level of calories. This is where our body is in a form of homeostasis. So this is where our body weight is fluctuating within a kilogram in most cases. If we were to eat over that amount, we are in a caloric surplus or a calorie surplus, which will result in weight gain. And if we were to eat under that amount, that would result in a calorie deficit or a caloric deficit, which will result in weight loss. So it's a very simple concept, and unfortunately in this day and age it's been made very confusing for a lot of people and individuals due to people trying to sell products or spread false information to sell that their methods or diet is better when the main fundamentals can never be changed and are the main core of what they are selling. For you to lose body fat or for you to gain weight, you need to be in either a caloric deficit or a caloric surplus, and it doesn't matter what method you use, the fundamentals of those methods will be one of those two things. So if we look more into when you're in a deficit, it's important to understand and realize you don't want to be starving yourself. Your main goal during a deficit is to hold on to that muscle that you worked hard to gain and burning the fat tissue off your body at a slow pace or relatively steady pace. If you jump into a huge deficit, for example over 1,000 calories, you're going to be burning way more than that. And most of that is not going to be just fat at that point. You're going to be burning a lot of muscle at the same time. Losing muscle will cause your performance to go down the drain, and you're going to be feeling really flat. You're going to be feeling bad. You're going to be feeling very tired, which isn't going to be a fun time for you during that deficit. You know, dieting isn't fun, but it doesn't have to be hell. Sure, being in a deficit this big will allow you to burn a lot of body fat, but you will appear a lot smaller / less toned at the end of the dieting phase due to the loss of so much muscle. This is why it's vital to track things in the gym and keep an eye on your performance levels. Always paying attention to these key variables such as your training, rest, and diet, ensuring they are on the right tracks. So a big mistake people make when trying to lean out is they try to take fastest approach possible and try to get there in the fastest way possible. Going back again to crash dieting and cutting a huge amount of calories out all at once in attempts of reaching much lower body fat levels. Again, yes, that will burn a lot of fat, but it'll burn a lot of muscle as well. You're going to feel like garbage. Your performance within your lifts will go down. You might also get injured, and so will your lean body mass, which is your muscle tissue. You want to eat as much as possible to preserve and even grow muscle tissue during a deficit to ensure that the gains you've made aren't being lost irresponsibly. And this could mean that you have to diet for longer, but as long as it's a steady process and you don't really feel like you're in a dieting phase, that's what you should be aiming for. Another thing that's going to be drastically affected when you crash dieting is your psychology and your overall psyche. As you're going to be dreaming about junk food, you're going to be thinking about junk food a lot, you're going to have higher cravings, making it much worse, your overall health, and looking at the overall context of things, setting yourself up for failure to either cheat and throw the whole diet away, or binge hard when it's over and gain an unnecessary amount of body fat back. A lot of people treat fat loss like it'll never come back. You have to understand that it can easily come back, and unfortunately it comes back quicker than what it does to lose it or for it to stay off. If we take keto dieting as an example, you shouldn't really be doing keto if you love carbs, and keto dieting can be a way for you to lose weight. And if you have lost weight during keto, that's awesome, but you would have felt absolutely horrible and your training performance in the gym would have suffered due to no carbs being in your system, no glycogen in the muscles. And one of the worst things you can do is to force yourself onto a diet that you absolutely dread. Yes, a lot of fat can be lost within a short time frame, but you need to understand that being so extremely restrictive could only potentially lead to even worse eating habits and cause you to binge like it's the end of the world. Then all that weight you lost starts coming back. So if we take an example of looking at the Biggest Loser show, the contestants lose so much weight in a short time frame just for the show in particular, crash dieting, and then once the show's over, they go back to their old eating habits, which is why balance is what I promote. So at the moment, we're talking a little bit about calorie deficit, nutrition, and what your body fat levels, physique, and all that stuff. So if we're touching on physique, a lot of people will have questions around abs. So if I'm touching on abs, one thing I often hear is some people will inaccurately what their body fat is. And when their body fat is higher than what they're saying it is, they blame their genetics on why they don't have abs. As far as abs goes, the main contributing factor to abs is going to be your genetics for what they look like, and also your body fat levels. You need to have a low body fat level to have abs, and if you have a higher body fat level, then your abs just aren't going to show regardless of what you do. Another common thing I hear is people want to do ab exercises and they think that's what is going to get their abs to show. Again, abs comes down to your body fat levels. When you train abs in the gym, what you're actually doing is what you do for any other muscle group, is you're breaking the tissue down, your abdominals or your abs, and then they are building back up and repairing due to adapting to that new training stimulus. So all you're doing for your abs is actually working them and making them rounder. You're not burning the fat around those abs. So again, abs only show if your body fat level is low enough. So we have covered calorie deficits. Now let's look at the flip side of things and look at dirty bulking, which refers to unnecessarily eating too much food just for the sake of supposedly gaining extra muscle faster or more efficiently. Well, unfortunately, sure, you will gain a lot of weight, but the majority of that will also be fat. So when it comes to dieting down, you're going to need a much longer time to be in a calorie deficit to get lean if you are following a dirty bulking approach. Yes, your lifts will drastically go up, but overall dirty bulking is just downright pretty idiotic, as you're just going to get fat. And just because your arms are bigger in your t-shirt and your t-shirt's tighter, it doesn't mean that you've grown bigger arms. It probably just means you have more fat around your arms. I'm not saying you shouldn't be in a caloric surplus to increase muscle tissue. The bottom line is to once again have a plan, monitor yourself, and be responsible with how you approach these variables, especially your caloric surplus. And what you should be doing is planning out mini cuts throughout the process of your surplus, and your surplus shouldn't go for any longer than 16 to 20 weeks without a mini cut, gaining no more than 10% body weight before you reassess and see if you need to go into a short dieting phase to drop those body fat levels to continue gaining muscle tissue and gaining weight for the long term, if that's your goal. So if we take me personally, for example, if I was to put myself on a bulk right now, what I would do and what I have been doing is to slowly increase your calories from what I've been eating at a maintenance level. So little by little, evaluating the different factors such as my ability to progress within my lifts, my physical appearance, and weight gain from the scale. By paying attention to these variables, it would give me a much better idea regarding what would possibly be needed to modify to allow me to stay on track towards my goals. If I see myself slowly gaining weight while keeping control of my body fat and not spilling completely over, then I'm on the right track. So you get the point of where I'm going here. Don't stuff your face silly like a madman without a plan. Have a plan, execute it, follow the right variables, and make sure that you're looking at the long term. I like to always use the analogy of when you go bowling. You have your main goal, which is knocking over all the pins and achieving a strike. And when you go bowling, you can either have the blockers or the gates up or down. Now, if we refer to this as with training, if we have the blockers up or the gates up, which is for us relates to our plans and our protocols and our variables that we put in place to get us towards those pins. For our physique is the bowling ball, then we can sometimes bump into those blocks, okay? But eventually the ball will get to the pins, which is our main goal. Now, if we didn't worry about those variables and we just had the gates down, yes, sometimes you can get away with getting towards your goals and not worrying about those variables, which is why some people just crash diet or just clean up their diet, improve their low-hanging fruit, and they achieve a result of weight loss or, gaining muscle tissue. But the more advanced you get, the smarter way to go about things is to have those blockers up and ensure that that bowling ball or your physique gets to that goal physique, which is the pins. That's the analogy that I like to use. So no matter if you're trying to gain weight or lose weight, training always should remain consistent, like the way you train. You shouldn't be unnecessarily changing things or exercises or rep ranges or anything you have been doing just because you're in a certain phase. So the main variables always apply. Follow a progressive overload, make sure you're executing, you're giving your best effort, and you're progressing within the gym, trying to always beat the program or hanging on to your performance. If we talk about a deficit, hanging on to your performance is going to be one of the main factors when it comes to holding on to your muscle tissue. If you're performing under what you originally performed, most of the time that's a result of either crash dieting or a result of muscle tissue, as you can't perform at the same level that you used to when you're at maintenance or when you're in a surplus. So always make sure that training remains consistent. I've gone over this a million times in the podcast, but make sure you're sticking to a plan, you're following that plan, you're taking care of the right variables, and you're focusing on your training, nutrition, and recovery within whatever phase you are in. So thanks for listening to this first episode of the podcast, guys. Hopefully you got a lot out of it, as it is one of the main goals of mine with starting this podcast is to just tell you how it is, as well as diving into more advanced concepts when it comes to training and nutrition. Make sure to share them. Okay guys, hopefully you enjoyed me rambling about fitness, training, nutrition. You got a lot out of it, and hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay in the background. There was a couple of good games that I had there, a couple of high kill games. I died a lot in a lot of them, but that's not really the point. The main thing is the kills, and I got a lot of them. I'm really enjoying using the, I think it's called the LSAT. I think the SMG is cool, but I think it's the best SMG in the game at the moment. So make sure to use it if you're not. And yeah, as far as like supporting the podcast and all that stuff, do what I said at the start of the video. And also don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video. You guys know what to do by now. I'm sure you watch many YouTubers that say the same thing. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next video.